The most popular stocks sold off hard today. The smartest founders in history are all rushing to the exit at the same time, and Wall Street is finally seeing the writing on the wall. We've seen this set up twice before. Nvidia's Jensen Huang called the software sell-off the most illogical thing in the world, and Trump just said that Iran should be very worried. Today, we cover why the market's selling off, what to know, and where the action is at right now.
There's a shift happening in the stock market right now. Wall Street is freaking out because the AI company Anthropic launched a new software that automates some legal work. The idea is that if the legal industry can be disrupted, then so can many other industries and companies, especially in software. AMD was one of the hardest hit stocks today, falling 17% after reporting earnings, giving weak guidance, and it ended up dragging chip stocks lower. Now, the CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen Huang, called the software sell-off that's been happening recently the most illogical thing in the world and said that it makes no sense. He argued that AI will use software tools, not replace them, and that AI has actually helped NVIDIA employees work more efficiently. He said that software products are tools and artificial intelligence will use those tools, not reinvent them. He even said here that, would you use a screwdriver or invent a new screwdriver? Straight from Jensen Huang.
There we go. And, mainstream media is making it seem like these software fears are what's driving the sell-off, while in reality, there are multiple other big things at play behind the scenes. The smartest founders in history are all rushing to the exit at the same time. SpaceX, OpenAI, Discord, Anthropic, and other massive companies are all aggressively targeting 2026 IPOs. SpaceX is set to be the largest IPO in history at $1.5 trillion in valuation, but they only have $8 billion in profit on $16 billion in revenue. Basically, these massive companies are using this as an opportunity to sell shares at arguably unsupportable valuations, just like companies did in the dot-com bubble in 2021 SPAC mania. And Wall Street is picking up on it, which is maybe why we're starting to see insiders dumping shares at a rate that we haven't seen since 2021. The sale-to-buy ratio has officially peaked 4-1, and the last time the ratio was this high was in late 2021, and then remember we saw that big pullback in 2022.
Yeah, 2022 was a very bloody year in the stock market. And on top of this, we've been actually looking at the 30 to 2-year Treasury bond yield ratio. And we showed this chart yesterday, and it's a very accurate at timing these tops in the stock market. It pretty much called like the 34% COVID decline, the financial crisis, the dot-com crash, and even the Iraq and Kuwait 20% decline from the early 90s. So be ready here. Whenever you see the 30 to 2-year ratio RSI cross above 50, it has generally called some of the tops in the stock market. So keep that in mind right now. And Mike, of course, while we're seeing the overall stock market cool off a bit, SPY is still only 1.78% away from all-time highs right now. Today's price action was overall negative, especially early on in the morning, but we did get a recovery coming through at the end of the day. Something that I've been watching with the SPY is there's been a general uptrend in place over the past few months heading into this new year. And what we're seeing is a trend of higher lows. Now, what I'm looking for is if we do see these software companies continue to sell off and this shift continue to happen in the stock market, I'll be watching for this ultimate turnover on SPY to worsen and for that uptrend to ultimately break. In the ultra short term, the recent low is very close to 682, and that happened just this morning. So that's going to be the main level that I'm watching for tomorrow. If we can bust under that 682 support, that is where I'm going to become a lot more bearish in the short term. In the immediate short term, though, there is a lot of resistance today, right around 690, and even the high of pre-market, close to 692. So watch those. If we break that up tomorrow, maybe we will hold that daily trend line and start to get that recovery like we've been seeing happen throughout the past few months.
Good to see. And this recent sell-off has been pretty weird because even though the market fell today, over 70% of stocks actually closed up. And we can see that historically when this has happened in the past, this is generally a pretty good sign for markets, especially in the short term where it ends up going green, especially like a week later, anywhere from, you could say 90% of the time to 60% of the time with positive average returns.
Yeah, this is some very positive data here, and it could help support an overall uptrend in the short term, but there could always be a shift. And we've been seeing a lot of shifts between the US and Iran nuclear talks that were scheduled for this week. They were originally meant to meet in Istanbul, but the talks ended up breaking down after Iran said that they wanted to move talks to Oman. Now, the US refused and said that it was this or nothing. Iran chose nothing, but then the US ended up caving in and agreeing to have talks in Oman. And we can see here that Trump actually pumped up his rhetoric on Iran today. He said that the Iran supreme leader should be worried. But after the U.S. actually agreed to meet with Iran, we saw oil prices really cool off following that initial run there. So oil ended up cooling off a bit today on that news. It'll be interesting to see these developments into the end of the week.
And what's exciting is that energy stocks are crushing it. And a lot of people are looking at the recent breakout in energy stocks and comparing it to the breakout that we saw in gold a few months ago. We can see the orange line is the price of gold, and we can see like the green and red like stock ticker line is what the energy ETF XLE is doing. And a lot of people are looking at energy stocks, whether it's XLE, ExxonMobil, OXY, and others, because they're going crazy right now, and they've really been like the strongest area in the market in the short term, as everything else is kind of falling apart or just super choppy.
Yeah, and we had that huge ZOM big money trade recently with the 135 calls for April 17th of 2026. The big money trader put $2.4 million into this, and the stock is exploding well up in the money now. Maybe it'll just be a couple days before ZOM hits $50 a share. But Mike, there's still a lot going on this week on the earnings side of things, and tonight we had one of the big players out there in AI, Google or Alphabet, report earnings here. Their EPS was up 31% year over year. Revenue was up 18%, and they ended up beating expectations today. So that sounded great, but price action was a bit shaky as they're actually blowing past investor expectations on AI spending. They pretty much said that they're going to be spending $175 to $185 billion this year, compared with the expectation of only $119.5 billion expected. Now, this is nearly double what they spent in 2025, and we've seen a lot of companies take hits from this recently. But so far, right now, whenever we look at Google in after hours, we can see that they are all over the place. Their initial price action was down. Now they popped back up, and now they're just getting very shaky. But as we've seen with Microsoft lately, whenever you have high AI spending, there's been some massive sell-offs.
Big time, whether you look at Microsoft, Meta, or even other stocks. But I think Google is getting a little bit of a different treatment because they're kind of like the leader in AI right now, at least in my opinion. Their stock has been doing very well in a broader sense as well, but it is unfortunate to see them, I would say, at least relatively weak on earnings. The stock is turning over in after hours right now, and let's not forget that Amazon is set to report tomorrow as well, and this can have a big influence on how the market moves. Google didn't really have that much of a big impact because it didn't really move that much, but just like we saw with Microsoft last week, it had a big move from earnings, and it certainly affected the market. So let's keep a close eye out for Amazon tomorrow. But another thing to look out for is that we're going to have some JOLTS data released 30 minutes after the market opens tomorrow. This can bring in some extra momentum. And then the January jobs report that was supposed to be released on Friday will now be released on Wednesday, February 11th, just so you know.
Yeah, that is some big events that are coming up over the next few trading days, so I'll keep these in mind for sure. But it's time for some setups and predictions for tomorrow. And with my first setup, I'm actually looking at Tesla to the downside. We looked at this one yesterday off of the 414 to 416 zone of support, and we went to Bookmap, and that ended up breaking down this morning. And once it broke down, it created a very great trading opportunity. We can see if you would have played the initial breakdown, if you would have just thrown a stop loss, around the middle range, around the end range, I should say, of yesterday, you could have a great risk reward at the low of day today. It got up as high as like 4.5 plus. So very strong movement here, Mike. What I'm watching for tomorrow is a move under $400. This is a very large psychological level of support. And again, we're coming to the Bookmap to support this support. There's like literal buyers stacked up at $400. In the middle of the day today, there was around 60,000 that were stacked up. And whenever it touched in the middle of the day, there was 635,000 volume to hit within those couple seconds there on that touch. So this is a very big level, Mike. If we break it down, I'll be watching Tesla to the downside.
Sounds good. A stock that's on my radar is Enphase, and it's to the upside. They reported earnings recently, and they said demand for their products was at its highest level in more than 2 years. And then they also got upgraded by analysts with a price target of $54, up from $31. The stock crushed it today, and we can see that there was a lot of good momentum and a strong close as well. This is on my bullish radar because of its strong momentum, but there's also been a lot of positive talk in the solar industry from Elon lately, which can help drive some of this like hype and momentum. If Enphase continues to put pressure on recent highs, I think it can make for a good short-term bullish scalping opportunity.
Yeah, it was a great move today by Enphase. What a great gap up. I'll be watching it in the short term as well with that type of price action. With my next play, I'm looking at Eli Lilly to the upside, ticker symbol LLY, and I really like Eli Lilly's daily setup here. If we look at the daily, there's a big resistance coming up right around 1,115, and there's even a wick that recently extends up to 1,135. So I'm watching that zone very carefully for a potential breakout here. They had some good news on their earnings today. They ended up actually seeing surging sales, and we can actually see that they've become the weight loss champion, so to say. Their Zepbound prescriptions are actually outpacing Wegovy prescriptions right now. Wegovy is sold by Novo Nordisk, ticker symbol NVO. They've been doing a lot worse in the short term than Eli Lilly has, but Lilly also had an upbeat sales forecast, and they even said that their full year sales would be beating Wall Street estimates also. So they have some good actionable news here. The stock is moving, a big resistance is testing, and they're also in one of those sectors that isn't really highly correlated to the overall market. If we look in the bottom right-hand side of the screen here, you can see that there's only a 0.52 correlation to SPY, and it's in that healthcare sector, which has more of a mind of its own.
Sounds good. Very interesting. A stock that's on my radar is DHR, and it's to the downside. This is a recent $642,000 big money trade with the 215 strike puts that expire pretty soon on March 6th. We can see that these put options are just out of the money. They have a relatively short-term expiration. The stock has been pretty weak, and it's downtrending pretty nicely as well. I think this one still has a good risk-reward, and I like the way the price action is unfolding. In the worst-case scenario, where the stock starts to put more pressure on recent highs, it can always be cut to keep those losses small. But besides that, let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have 3M, ticker symbol MMM, to the upside.
Another stock that has been beaten down in the short term, but it is starting to recover here. If 3M can end up breaking up above 164, watch it to the upside.
With the next one, we have Starbucks, ticker symbol SBUX, also to the upside.
Yeah, nice movement here. Weak correlation to SPY as well. If Starbucks can break above 97.15, watch it up too.
And then with the last one, we have Palantir, ticker symbol PLTR, to the downside.
This was actually one of my favorite moves today, Mike. Closed down 11%. If Palantir breaks under 136, watch for a possible downside continuation tomorrow.
Sounds good. So we have these three stocks on the radar for potential continuations tomorrow, if and only if they break through the levels listed. As always, have stop losses. Protect yourself. Only risk an amount that you're comfortable losing. Know why you get into every trade you get into, and focus on making smart, disciplined trading decisions. And as always, if you are into short-term trading, check out the StockedUp trading floor. There's a bunch of great resources for that. But let's jump right into today's $1.9 million big money trade. And today we are looking at ticker symbol SMH. The trader here bought the 350 strike put options that expire on April 17th of 2026. This is a $1.96 million trade where the trader is risking that much money to potentially make $9.24 million. For our more advanced traders out there, this is technically a put debit spread where they're short the 280 strike put options. SMH is an ETF that follows semiconductor stocks. As we know lately, they have been selling off pretty hard. Very interesting trade setup. The trade has some time to it, but it also has, it's also a relatively short-term trade as well.
Yeah, there's about a couple months until expiration here, and whenever I'm looking at SMH, it's following an uptrend kind of similar to the SPY. If we look at it, there's actually been higher lows posting pretty continually here. There are pullbacks mixed in on the way up, and I'm still curious if this overall pullback that we're seeing in the short term is going to result in a larger sell-off that really ensues over multiple weeks to even maybe multiple months, or if it's just going to be another short-term bounce here. In the event that it's not, I think this is a very interesting big money trade. There's a lot of money in it as well. $1.9 million is definitely it's definitely on the larger side of the big money trades that we cover here on the channel. And with that said, I mean, SMH is definitely overextended. Whenever you zoom out on the daily and you just look at tech stocks in general, they've been running up a lot the past couple of years. So I'm not surprised to see people going in here. Keep in mind that we never know why the big money trader is entering. This could be a hedge position as well.
There we go. If you guys are new to the channel, welcome, and consider obliterating that subscribe button. For every single trading day, we post brand new videos just like this one, showcasing multi-million-dollar big money trades, SPY levels and analysis, hot stocks to keep on your radar, upcoming events, earnings, historical stats, and so much more. If you subscribe, you'll get our videos recommended to you more often, so definitely consider doing that. And let's also give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, Sharpie, in the StockedUp Discord, who had some very nice gains today, a little bit over $3,600 with Apple. Shout out to you, Sharpie. Keep up the great work going forward. It is awesome to see posts like this one, and looks like you had a couple screenshots today, so keep on rolling. If you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out that first link in the description and the comments down below to get in on the StockedUp trading floor. Today, our search bot did very well as the Palantir put options popped up by 583%, the Robinhood put options by 309%, the AMD put options by 187%, the Bank of America call options by 136%, the APLD put options by 120%. The list goes on, and of course, there were a handful of duds as well. You also get full access to our live events. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, access the big money plays, and so many other resources, tools, information, and software. It's the place to be if you're into short-term trading. The information for this will be the first link in the description in the comments down below. But besides that, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market tomorrow.